This is Jupiter Today for the 7th of January 2015. Jupiter Today is a daily podcast focusing attention on the Jupiter system for the purpose of monitoring activity. This podcast is being recorded at 23:46 UTC on the 6th of January. At 0 hours UTC, the position of Jupiter on the celestial sphere will be a right ascension of 9 hours, 34 minutes, 55.3 seconds, and a declination of positive 15 degrees, 18 minutes, 35.9 seconds. The angular separation from the Sun today is 145.066 degrees, and that's 1.107 degrees greater than what it was yesterday. The phase angle, which is the angle between the Sun and the Earth as seen from Jupiter, is 6.071 degrees, and that's 0.168 degrees less than what it was yesterday. The distance between Earth and Jupiter is 671,171,273 kilometers, and that's 1,353,845 kilometers less than what it was yesterday. That gives a relative velocity between Earth and Jupiter of 56,410.21 kilometers per hour, moving towards one another. And that's 1,533.25 kilometers per hour slower than it was yesterday. The central meridian at 0 hours UTC, CM1 284.85 degrees, CM2 174.56 degrees, CM3 74.91 degrees. At 0 hours UTC, Io begins the day in quadrant 3, still heading west but very near its western elongation. Europa starts the day in quadrant 3, also still heading west. Ganymede spends all day in quadrant 4, heading east. And Callisto starts the day in quadrant 2, heading west. And here's from Earth's point of view. At 6 hours UTC, Io is now in quadrant 4, heading east. Europa is in quadrant 3, heading west. 12 hours UTC, Io is passing behind Jupiter and is now moving into quadrant 1, heading east. Europa is at its western elongation and is now in quadrant 4, heading east. 1800 hours, Io is still in quadrant 1, heading east a little while longer, and Callisto is transiting. And by 0 hours UTC tomorrow, Io is past its western elongation, is now in quadrant 2, heading west. Europa and Ganymede having a close encounter. There are 6 Jupiter satellite events today. First at 9:06 UTC, when Io disappears into the shadow of Jupiter. At 9:14, the shadow of Callisto ingresses. At 12:07, Io reappears from behind Jupiter. At 14:03 UTC, Callisto's shadow egresses. At 15:50, Callisto begins its transit of Jupiter. And at 2032, Callisto ends with the transit of Jupiter. There are 3 satellite neutral events today. The first takes place at 0 hours 3 minutes when Europa occults Io. This is a 10-minute event with an estimated magnitude flux drop of 0.29 magnitudes, and it's a pretty far distance from Jupiter, 107.73 arcseconds. The second neutral event takes place from 1552 to 1636, and this is when Europa will be eclipsing Ganymede. This is a 43.7-minute event, a very deep event, with an estimated magnitude flux drop of Ganymede of 0.426, and it's 191.4 arcseconds from Jupiter, but Europa and Ganymede are only 18.17 arcseconds apart. And the third today goes from 2341 to 2349 when Callisto eclipses Ganymede. This is an 8.4-minute event with an estimated magnitude flux drop of 0.18, pretty deep. And again, Ganymede has moved towards Jupiter a little bit, but still pretty far out at 118.68 arcseconds from Jupiter. And Callisto and Ganymede are 88.78 arcseconds apart. 24 hours of Jupiter sky. The red spot crosses the meridian twice today, first at 7:49 and the second at 17:45 UTC. There were some new images posted today. You can see the date and time here. Wonderful images. I want to develop a program to watch the weather on Jupiter as continuously as possible. Looking for a lot of help with that. Get that project going. Here's another one. Taken at about the same time. There was no new radio data and no new papers, so please subscribe. I'd like to hear your comments and suggestions and questions. You can send your images to the email shown. And until tomorrow, I bid you peace.